cars are on the grid for the start of the improved production touring car race over 10 laps. On the front of the grid, the pole position car number 1, Ian Gagan, driving Ford Mustang 302 V8. Alongside him, car number 3, Alan Moffat, in a Ford Mustang Trans Am. On the second line, Bob Jane. On the inside, the Ford Mustang Trans Am, and alongside him, Rob Knight in the Ford Escort TC. Only 0.3 of a second separated the three leading cars in practice yesterday, so this should be a particularly good race. Here once again, Graham Howard.
Thank you, Bert Oliver. You can see that the track looks a grey colour. There's been rain here. The track is not wet at the moment, but it's damp, and the rain is definitely around. Moffat and Gagan have already shown their rivalry in the long series race. Must be less than 10 seconds to go now. You can almost feel the tension from here. And flag is up, 5 left. You can see the strength of the wind from the way the flag's blowing. Away they go. Lots of wheel spin there, and Gagan once again master of the start and storms into the lead with Moffat still sideways, tucking in behind him. Jane third, Richard Knight on the outside, and Manning is thrusting through on the inside as they go through paddock, and the crowd streams from behind the pit areas over to the fences that look to the northern end of the circuit, and it's still Gagan leading as they go around Homestead, and it looks like Jane trying to nose away through from Moffat as they come out from Homestead and down into Hume Straight. Maticus incredibly fourth in the 1310 Cooper, and Gagan streaking away to an early lead. 10 laps, he's got to keep this up. Down to creep now, noses hard down under brakes, and you can see the cars snaking a little on the slightly greasy road. Drivers feeling their way here. There's not ideal traction. Gagan in his winning Mustang storming off to an early lead in this race with the two really hot Victorian cars right behind him. Both later model Mustangs, possibly with greater horsepower, certainly with better brakes. None of them, I don't really think, capable of matching the driving of Pete Gagan. Gagan now picking the car up, going fairly gently across the northern crossing. You can see how shiny it is with rain. At this stage, Gagan onto the causeway, going fairly gently, and watch the Gagan style across here. Well, he's been fairly subdued at this stage. Maticus still fighting fourth, astern of Jane, who's in turn astern of Moffat. Looks like Chris Brower next. Then the first of the twin cam escorts. Well, if that was Chris Brower, he must have made a marvellous opening lap. And Gagan now coming out from Polo. In fact, he's almost finished with Ledger and into the pit straight for the first time and across the line, and a blue flag being displayed almost unnecessarily to Moffat and Jane. They're getting stuck into it there. Storming through, and it's Jane in second place from Moffat in the low, fastback Can-Am Mustang. Well, it looks to me as though Gagan's going to run away with this race, and the interest will be further back in the field. We'll just have to see how they turn out. The tail end is still coming past the pits as Gagan pins the car down under brakes at Creek Corner. And we've had a really thorough kind of a tangle over near Polo. No, it's in the middle of Paddock Bend, and it's Richard Knight in the Stillwell-entered twin cam escort, thoroughly intermingled with Don Holland in the BLMC Cooper. And as you can see from here, they're well and truly crunched together. Well, this is going to be something of a hazard for cars as they come round later on. But you can see just how tricky the surface can be. And Gagan there, you can see him whacking on lock for no apparent reason. Obviously, there are little slippery patches on the road. Gagan across the causeway. And putting a wheel slightly astray there, up and over what they call the piano keys, those black and white painted edgings to the course. Now I'm running down towards Ledger, into Ledger, which he takes in almost a classic drift, traction providing. And the yellow flag being waved to Gagan as he comes up, but the road on the exit from the corner, as you'll see, is very thoroughly filled with racing cars. and other cars picking their way around. Jane goes through on the inside, Moffat through on the outside. And Gagan now storming away to a very useful lead. Wipers working, the rain must be returning. In fact, we can see further evidence of this all round the circuit. And the wipers on down at Creek Corner. More cars. Well, this is a real nuisance. It's taken out two of the more interesting cars in the race as well.
Into the third lap, and the leader is Ian Gagan in the big Ford Mustang, followed closely by Bob Jane of Victoria, driving the Ford Mustang, and then Alan Moffat in the Ford Mustang. In fourth position is car number 14, Lakers Manticus in the Morris Cooper S, followed then by Chris Brower in the Ford Mustang, and he is closely followed by Bill Fanning in a Lotus Ford Cortina.
Well, this will give you an idea of Gagan's lead. The two Victorian cars, to a degree preoccupied with their personal dice, just don't seem to be able to see which way he went. And it's still Jane leading, still Moffat with the very sexy Trans Am car in third spot. There's no question that at Warwick Farm, Gagan is certainly the Mustang master. He's running away and hiding from them now. He's got almost the full length of, in fact, he's got more than the length of the pit straight over Jane and Moffat. And these two fellas getting really stuck into it in their fight for second and third place. And still the wreckage stacked up on Paddock Bend. In fact, there's even more cars there now. A 10-second lead. Gagan's pulled out on second and third. Manticus running still fourth. And in fifth place, Chris Brower driving a fine race with this ex-Bob Jane car, a fairly elderly Mustang, as Mustangs go. Well, Gagan's... he could almost get out and have lunch, I reckon. But look how gentle he is being down there. The road's shiny, and the inside back wheel, you can see it fluttering away into wheel spin, making considerable demands on throttle control. This is one of the ways that Gagan's getting away from Jane and Moffat. I really do think that, without being overly critical of anybody, Gagan's throttle control is brilliant. Across the northern crossing again, coming down around the top of the lake. Wipers still working, making it look relatively easy. You can see the beautifully polished rims of his special magnesium racing wheels. And the rest of the car is turned out to match. Very clean, very shiny. In showroom condition virtually. And his lead is extending. There's an empty causeway. A long, long way back, and where's Jane and Moffat? Because that's Manticus now, and there's Moffat by himself and no Jane. Manticus up into second place, and a very crunched up Alan Moffat. Well, we can draw our own conclusions about this. The gap is now out to, and Moffat's going to blow a front tyre very shortly. You can see the smoke coming off it. Moffat has to retire soon. I'd say probably Jane backed off a shade too early. Moffat hit him. Jane will be parked on a fence somewhere down in the S's most likely. Moffat's wheel even looks as though it's leaning in at the top as well. But this hands the race to Gagan on a plate. Moffat surely isn't going to continue racing like this, although it looks as though he is. And Manticus hurries on in second place, and Moffat, with the crunched nose, presses on. And just coming to the top of our picture now is Bob Jane, nose up and down, braking viciously, coming into the pits. And I don't think anybody better stand in front of him as he comes down the deceleration lane. I don't think Mr. Jane will be terribly happy. Gagan now starting to lap the tail enders. He's got the race in a bag. Jane's car is presently stopped in the pits. It looks from here to be reasonably straight, but obviously somewhere around the back it must have had a pretty good nudge. And in fact, the mechanics appear to be levering the bodywork off one of the left-hand front wheels. But in 10 laps, of course, this is only going to be enough to allow Jane out, perhaps to just sort of feel a little bit better and get stuck into his racing again. They're reaching now for a larger crowbar. I think that Jane's race is history.
Here's Ian Gagan, well, almost halfway through the fifth lap, a clear leader of about 20-odd seconds. In second position, Alan Moffat, car number 3, followed then by, car number 14, Lakers Manticus in the Morris Cooper S, having a great duel. Then follows Chris Brower in the Ford Mustang. And a big gap then to Bill Fanning, car number 7, and Robert Inglis in another Lotus Ford Cortina. Those two are followed by cars 19 and 20, Morris Cooper S's, driven respectively by Bob Tweedy and Alan Kent. But Ian Gagan having an armchair ride here in the big Ford Mustang 302 V8, leading at the moment by about 18 to 20 seconds.
And the car's now coming down the pit straight. There's Moffat. You can see the smoke billowing off his front wheel, and he's got past Manticus. No, that's not correct. It's a similar coloured car to Manticus, but it isn't him. Well, this has got me thoroughly confused now. I'm not quite sure who it is. We can be certain that this is Pete Gagan leading the race. He's coming out from Creek. You can see the road now completely awash. A lot of spray coming out from behind the cars. This is not ideal weather for racing a powerful touring car. The rain now obviously quite heavy. Lots of improvised umbrellas being put up. Herb Taylor in his well-worn and worn well Holden 179 about to be lapped by Gagan. Waves him through. They're good mates. Gagan now going fairly gently across the causeway, not letting the car get too far out of shape. See the spray streaming off the wheels, streaming out from under the guards, and the car almost reflected on the wet road. It's very slippery out there. And the whole race is getting strung out. There must be very nearly a minute over covering the first 4 or 5 cars. Gagan with his headlights on is coping with the tail enders. Tail up as he peels off a paddock. A nice smooth line, making sure he doesn't do anything violent to deflect the car from the way he wants it to go. Never letting slides get carried away into fairly big things that could result in spins. And down the straight again. Even on the straight with a car like this, he's going to have to be fairly careful that he doesn't hit sudden patches of water which could deflect the car.
6 laps completed, and Ian Gagan holding about a 29-second lead now over car number 3, Alan Moffat, the Ford Mustang, with another 3 seconds to Lakers Mantiques in the Morris Cooper S in 3rd position. Then follows car number 4, Chris Brower, the Ford Mustang, in 4th position. Followed then in 5th position, car number 7, Bill Fanning, driving the Lotus Ford Cortina, and following Bill Fanning is car number 19, the Morris Cooper S, driven by Bob Tweedy.
And here's Moffat threading his way up from Creek. He's got Manticus right behind him. And this looks like probably Chris Brower on his way down the straight, and the leader again, Gagan, going very careful and very sideways early on as he came onto the causeway. The water almost in wakes behind his wheels. And the car obviously sideways there and sliding all 4 wheels out towards the outside of the corner before Gagan can slow it down sufficiently to get it pointing the right way again. Now into Ledger and coming up behind one of the Hillman Hunter GTs. Probably a former motorcyclist, Len Attlee, who's not going too badly in this particular car, as a matter of fact. And Gagan, and there's Moffat again, still in the picture with Manticus right behind him. Manticus, the very good-looking young Greek boy, made a name for himself in a lightweight mini, hasn't been quite as successful in his improved production car. There's nothing that Manticus can really do to match the power of Moffat's car. On the other hand, Moffat's probably working pretty hard to keep the big Trans Am machine pointed where he wants it. Manticus, on the other hand, has got a relatively easy job. Well, you can get a measure there of just how slippery something is. That little mini didn't quite seem to know which direction was north. He's attempting to justify it now. Rejoins the race. This course, was on the exit from Paddock, and I think he was probably a little put off by the arrival of Moffat behind him. And Gagan, meantime, making no mistakes, off from the northern crossing, down round the sweepers at the top of the lake. Braking a lot earlier here now than he normally would if it were dry. It's a shame perhaps that it's wet, because Gagan's style in the dry in this car is unbelievable. He's an absolute master of this Mustang. And in fact, if there was somebody like, say, Jim McEwen, who gave him a real run for his money last year here at Warwick Farm when it was also wet, if there was someone like McEwen here, we'd see Gagan still driving sideways with fantastic control. Gagan coming past on his 8th lap. He's the first and so far only car on that lap. Moffat must be ages astern by this stage. And it was still with Manticus behind him as Gagan goes towards the northern crossing. Moffat and Manticus are just coming out from Polo.
Well, Gagan now into his 9th of this 10-lap race, and he's about 35 to 38 seconds ahead of Moffat, car number 3 in 2nd position, who's having a great dice with Manticus, car number 14. In 4th position still is Chris Brower in car number 4, followed then by car number 7, Bill Fanning, who is not far ahead of car number 19, Bob Tweedy driving the Morris Cooper S, and Tweedy followed by Robert Inglis in the latest Ford Cortina. But with 2 laps to go, or just a little less than 2 laps to go now, Ian Gagan still leading by 35 to 38 seconds.
Well, thank you, Bert Oliver. This is a measure, I think, of Gagan's control of the race. Moffat certainly would have been a little closer, I think, if he'd not been hampered by crunching into Joan. And possibly the wheel alignment of his car is not ideal. Gagan's having a pretty lonely race out there. He's not being extended really, although the fact that he's lapping in the times that he is a fair indication of his skill, and he's got to be right with it in this car to make sure that he doesn't make any mistakes at all. But he's driving a pretty lonely race there. He's got some 35 to 38 seconds, as Bert Oliver has told us, over the rest of the field. And this is the final lap for Gagan. Here comes Moffat across causeway with the front of his car well crunched. So there's going to be quite a deal of panel work to be done there, and I think that, well, I'm still surprised that he's managing to get round on that right-hand side front wheel, because it's obviously rubbing on the bodywork. Gagan is now down at Creek for the final time. And Manticus doesn't seem to be able to do much about Moffat at this stage. I think Moffat is pretty well assured of 2nd place. Gagan, meantime, is coming around Creek as Moffat just heads through Paddock Bend. Gagan now slipping past on the inside. Unobstructed run through the S's under Shell Bridge. Well, this has been a most interesting race further down the field. Gagan's race at the head of it has been pretty much a demonstration run of how to drive a fast Mustang in the rain. We've seen numerous off-course excursions by cars known and lesser known, but Gagan has had it pretty much his own way right from the start, where he made a good start and never looked back. It's been Gagan's race. Other people haven't fared so well. There was Herb Vines, I think, stuck into the causeway fence there as Gagan came across the causeway. But with Polo behind him and only Ledger remaining, Gagan continues virtually a one-man race as far as the lead was concerned. And the checkered flag for Gagan. Moffat now coming off the causeway. Still very wet out there, as you can see. Manticus, I think, too far astern at this stage to represent any real threat for Moffat. Moffat now through Ledger. And here's a surprise. Leading Manticus across the line is Bob James. Manticus, I rather feel, might have taken third place, and Jane was in fact a lap behind. On the other hand, if Jane was not, then it's been a most remarkable recovery. We didn't, unfortunately, check on how long Jane was in the pits.
So the unofficial placings for the improved production touring cars, 10 laps, 22.5 miles. First, car number 1, driver Ian Gagan, a Ford Mustang 302 V8. Second, car number 3, driven by Alan Moffat, Victoria, a Ford Mustang Trans Am. And third, Lagos Mantiques, car number 14, which is a Morris Cooper S. Then would follow C. Bra in car number 4, a Ford Mustang 302 V8, and Bill Fanning in car number 7, a Lotus Ford Cortina TC. But a great win to Ian Gagan.